I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Well, here goes nothing. All right. 5-second countdown. Welcome back to Poutine Politics, Canadian issues served with cheese curds. My name's Adam.
My name's Mike.
And Mike, there's been a lot happening recently. And what I wanted to do was I thought about certain things that could happen, let's say, in the next 6 to 24 months. And I figured I would run some questions by you to do a little bit of prediction as to what's going to happen politically in the next little while.
Okay.
And now we have a particular reason for doing this, and I figure I'll bring it up now before we really get into the episode, is the fact that Mike and I are busy people.
Yep, we are.
Which, unfortunately, we haven't had as much opportunity to really be able to sit down, do reading about things that have been going on, to really put the full focus and effort into the podcast that we've wanted to do and that we've been trying to do. And so this episode will be the last regular release for now, unless circumstances change, I guess. Is how I would put it.
And it's not a decision we made lightly, but it's a decision that we both mutually came to almost. And it was just, I can't put the time in to do the research that I want to do because my job now is way different than the job I had before. The job I had before was I went in, I clocked in, I did my thing, I listened to some podcasts, and I went home. My job now, I'm constantly thinking about it, at least at some point. So whenever I have a free time to think about something, I'm doing something for that work as opposed to for the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I know that with school ramping up, then there might be other things that might be changing with regard to that. So I don't have that time.
Right.
And
especially
Adam's in a similar boat because he decided to take on more stuff, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, work is always busy because, I mean, when you're doing accounting and bookkeeping and taxes and stuff like that, there's always something going on. And then also the fact that back in January, or I guess December or January, I decided to start doing the schooling I needed to do to get my actual designation. And that takes a lot of time. And so as a result, I feel like I have less time to be able to commit to doing something like this. And I'm going to miss it. And I still want to do something here and there as certain topics come up, if there's things that we want to talk about. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the weekly releases are definitely not going to be happening anymore, or like I said, at least for the foreseeable future. Keeping that in mind, let's put a positive spin on things. So there were questions that I wanted to ask you in regards to kind of where we predict things are going to be in the next, like I was saying, six months to 2 years. And then a whole bunch of stuff happened, such as there was obviously the We Charity quote unquote scandal, depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on and whether or not you feel that it's a scandal or not. I watched parts of Pierre Poilievre's little press conference there when they released when they had the document release, and he's taken these pieces of paper that show like redacted documents and he's throwing them around the room, and he's like, this is well, what was it? Yeah, I'm gonna unplug a little bit here too. He does the whole quote unquote shit show because that was what was in the in one of the emails that was released as a part of the document. And anyways, it was funny. That guy has, I think he's got 2 modes. He's got nothing and he's got outrage.
Well, isn't that the conservative motto nowadays?
Certain
outrage or nothing?
I would say certain parts of the Conservative Party, yes. I would not say the Conservative Party as a whole, but certain parts of it, absolutely. To go along with the We Charity situation is the fact that Bill Morneau resigned. And what else? Let me see. So Chrystia Freeland is now the finance minister. So the first female finance minister in federal politics. And then the government, or the Liberal Party, has prorogued Parliament until the 23rd of September. And the weekend that we're recording this is also when the Conservative Party is choosing their next leader. So the thing is by the time this comes out, it'll already have been chosen. So I can't really ask you the question of who do you think is going to win, and we've already covered that anyways.
Wait, what? Who do I think is going to win? Is who is going to win. I don't have to look in a crystal ball to figure that out.
Well, we kind of blew that one. I don't know.
The coronation's already happened.
In the last few days, I've been reading things like Aaron O'Toole could still win this thing because of second place votes from Derek Sloan and Leslie Lewis and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And that's exactly what happened. So we go into Parliament being prorogued for the next month, and the aggregate polls that CBC tracks show that the Liberals are currently, at least, in a position that if an election were held tomorrow, they have a very high probability of forming a majority government in the next election. Of course, politics turns on a dime, and that's not where it's sitting right now.
Okay.
And they've essentially gotten over the hump of the whole We Charity thing, by the looks of it. Scandal, non-scandal, whatever. So the first question, I guess, is, do you feel like proroguing Parliament could cause Liberal fortunes to drop?
No.
Why do you think not?
Because you can't go down in the polls if you do nothing. See Joe Biden.
Okay. I mean, I think those circumstances are a little different, but...
Well, I mean, like, for the most part, one of the best things you can do in Parliament is just not propose anything. You can't make anybody upset with you and get rid of your vote if you do nothing.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Like, how many bills are you going to come across where everyone's like, oh, that's a win-win?
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
I mean, I guess what I would say is I could see maybe it coming down a little bit, but not to the point that it would be like, oh my God, it's a tight race.
The only way it'll come down is if the We scandal is bigger than we think.
Which I have my doubts.
I really have no idea because I really haven't been following that much, to be honest. I'm just like, whatever. Oh no, the Liberals are mired in a minor scandal again. Because that's all they are. They're not major, they're minor. No, now, you might be like morally opposed to a politician being involved in a scandal, right? Like no politician should ever be involved in a scandal. Okay, that's fair. But what party are you voting for then?
Yeah.
Green? Because they don't have a track record? As a capitalist conservative, I mean, I know that by nature, my leanings are going to dictate that anybody who is that nature is going to lean towards taking bribes from or influence from big business to try and get as much of that stuff so that way they can make as much money as possible. But at the same point in time, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that doesn't happen.
Right.
So whatever. It's not, we're talking about a charity. Like if this was cough Bombardier. No, if this was Tim Hortons.
Well, I mean, SNC Lavalin was kind of one of those situations, technically, right?
Yeah, SNC Lavalin was much more of a big deal than this is,
right?
In my opinion, because like it's a charity. What's the big deal?
Yeah, but they have profitable quote unquote divisions of the business, right? Like, why does a charity need to own real estate? It's like, well, they can have more business than just the charity.
Even if it doesn't own real estate, why is that a bad thing?
I don't know.
It could have property. It just it makes money for the charity. Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Just some people. It's about growing perspective on things. Do I think the Liberals should be unpunished? No. Bill Morneau fell on the sword.
That we're aware of. Right? That we're aware of, I guess. We don't know if that's a falling on the sword or if he got pushed out.
But yeah, he's the one that took the brunt of it.
Yes.
Like I'm not saying that he personally was the cause of it or if he was forced out, but he's the one that ultimately fell on the sword.
Well,
so that's the repercussions of it. You lost that guy.
Yeah.
And if that guy was a prominent figure for your federal politics, that hurts you.
Yes.
Long term.
Yeah. I'm sure the $41,000 check that he cut to the charity the day that he testified to the finance committee probably didn't help his cause.
No.
Oh, I forgot.
Whatever. It's $41,000. Like, I mean, people. That's nothing.
I know it's a small. It's a small amount of money.
Nothing.
Okay. The argument from some people is like $41,000 is how much someone makes in a year, right? And for him to cut a check, just like that and be like, oh, sorry, I forgot to pay this kind of thing. It speaks to not being in touch with the average person. Which I mean, okay, Bill Morneau is a rich guy.
right? Like he just didn't, whatever. He made a mistake, and he paid the price for it.
Because of the whole Morneau resignation thing, I came across a comment from somebody. They're like, "Oh, he's still gonna get his rich MP's pension and stuff like that." And I'm like, "No, actually, he won't, because he's only been an MP for 5 years, and in order to get that pension, you have to be an MP for at least 6 years. So there's a saving grace there in that the taxpayer won't be paying his government pension for the rest of the year or the rest of his life because he didn't work long enough to qualify to get it."
There you go.
Silver linings, people. Silver linings.
Exactly.
All right. So when we come back from this prorogation, the Liberals have stated that they're going to have a throne speech.
Okay.
So a throne speech obviously is designed to show the way forward, as it were. What this is. It's like a business plan or a vision statement. This is what the government is going to do with its next parliamentary session. Now the thing is that with this being a minority parliament, a speech from the throne does come with the potential for a confidence vote. Considering the language that has been coming out from the three main opposition parties, the Conservatives, because they're the Conservatives, the NDP, because certain members within the NDP feel exactly the same as the Conservatives about the Liberals, and the Bloc saying that, again, because of the whole We Charity thing, that Justin Trudeau, his chief of staff, and Bill Morneau must resign. Well, he got 1 out of 3, or they're gonna force for an election to be called. Because the Bloc has that power. They need to have all three of those parties essentially have to agree to shoot down the Liberals. Since there's going to be a confidence vote as a result of the speech from the throne, will we go to an election?
No.
I agree with that.
He knows he can't win, so why try? Right? Like, if he thinks he can make a better play later, he can make a better play later. Like a no confidence vote, yeah, there's an opportunity there, but it's just an opportunity for the NDP and the Bloc to say they don't want the leader.
Right.
That's all it is.
Right.
That's all that's going to happen. NDP and Bloc are going to say, vote of no confidence. And the Conservatives are going to go, they're either going to abstain or do something silly like that, and then let the Liberals get what they want.
Okay.
Because the Liberals, smartly, politically smart, will say nothing. Will say absolutely nothing.
Right. I mean, you might be right in that they may not give them any ammunition. I think there's going to be based on the press conference when the prorogation was announced. I think there is going to be certain language in the throne speech that will be designed almost like not a time bomb, but something along those lines, where it's like, we're going to throw in I think they're going to throw in a bunch of stuff that, while it might sound good, or it's like it sounds good to, say, the NDP, or some of it might sound good to the Conservatives, and a lot of it's going to sound good to Liberal voters. But at the same time, I think a big reason for proroguing and then having a throne speech, and they're also talking about, after the throne speech, releasing a budget, which would also trigger a confidence vote, is they're basically egging on the opposition to say, come on, you think we're doing such a bad job? Let's go to the polls. Let's find out. Let's see what people think about what kind of a job we're doing. I feel like it's almost like trying to call their bluff. It's either, if the Liberals can maintain their standing through the next month, and then, let's say, through an election, or they're going to call the bluff of the opposition, who will decide not to force an election, and then it'll kind of look like, well, what were you guys complaining about then?
There's only two ways this can go. It either the Liberals say something that the Conservatives can go after, or they don't. But just to have an election for the sake of election. Once it comes in, he'll say the right things. He's not stupid. Mm-hmm. He's not Andrew Scheer.
Yeah. Who still doesn't know when to shut up.
Oh, I think the Prime Minister should resign. How many times has this been there, Scheer boy?
Yeah, I know.
You know that even if he resigns, you're still not in charge, right? Like, it doesn't go to the next person that wants.
It doesn't go to the next party.
Yeah, that's not how it works. So what are you doing? Like, what do you hope to gain from this? So I don't see an election coming up. I really don't.
All right. The CERB and EI. So it was announced, again, as a part of...
You want forever?
What's...
Yeah, in some form. It'll eventually be rolled into the employment insurance.
Well, that's yeah. So that's where that's going. So I mean, so it was announced along with the prorogation that the CERB is going to be extended another month, and then there's going to be, I think, 3 or 4 different EI programs. There's going to be like the standard EI program, and then there's going to be other recovery related programs for getting, trying to get people back to work. But the CERB is essentially going to phase out as of the 27th of September. So the question I have in regards to this, and I don't think this is going to happen because this is, again, one of those things that could be overreaching with the throne speech, but will the throne speech include any mention of potentially moving towards a universal basic income?
No, because again, that could trigger the conservatives.
Now, I could trigger the conservatives, but the reason why I think there's a possibility is that if something like that is mentioned in the throne speech and a non-confidence motion happens and the NDP votes against it, they look like hypocrites. Because again, the conservatives can't bring the liberals down by themselves.
No.
So if the throne speech includes plans for universal basic income and pharmacare and these things that the NDP kind of ran on as a part of their platform in the last election, if the liberals include that in the throne speech to say this is part of our plan for this next phase of Canada, as it were, how can the NDP vote against that?
Weak conspiracy.
I don't think that's enough. But I get what you're saying.
You asked.
No, I know. I realize. I know I asked the question, but yeah, anyways.
Do they need... Wait, how does that work? They all have to...
Well, essentially, the Liberals have enough seats that the other 3 parties, because let's not count the Greens because they only have 3 seats, right? So let's say the Greens vote with the Liberals. All 3 of the other parties have to vote basically together to force a vote or to force an election. Or like the other thing that I kind of joked about is, well, those 3 parties have enough seats that they could try and form a coalition. And it's like, yeah, okay, good luck. That's never going to happen.
I don't think they'll put it in there. And the reason why is because if they put it in there, then the conservatives, the bloc, can really start pushing and it can really start hurting their overall standings.
Right.
The liberals are ahead. They want to stay ahead. The reality is that, yeah, they're ahead for now, but by putting that in the platform, you may not trigger election necessarily. But if you do it during the throne speech and you don't do it during the budget, the NDP flips on you.
True. Yes.
Because they smell blood in the water.
Right.
Right. Because the polls will tumble. And I've seen the Liberals' MO for far too long say nothing, but make it sound like everything's happening.
Well,
why would you?
The Liberals' MO is also eventually eat your own. And that is also seems part of what's going on right now because of the whole We Charity thing. So.
Well, yeah, that's how come the Liberals aren't in power forever and ever and ever.
Right.
Otherwise they would be, but they decide, oh, we're going to have each one fight each other. I'm like, why are you guys doing this? You're morons.
Yeah.
You could just be in power forever.
So another question that got ruined because it was asked during the press conference when the Liberals announced they were proroguing Parliament. There was a journalist that asked whether Justin Trudeau was planning on running in the next election, and he said absolutely he was. So one of my questions, I think I've talked to you about it before, was our thoughts on whether or not he makes it to the next election. And
no.
You don't think he will?
No. They're grooming Freeland.
I think it's possible that they're grooming her, but I think my standpoint is unless an election gets called in the next 12 months, then maybe he steps aside. But if an election happens sooner than that, then he'll still be there.
Okay, so here's my thought process, and this is where my thought process is. As long as COVID is something still prevalent, we are going to be reminded of the job that Justin Trudeau did, which he did a fantastic job. Right?
Even Doug Ford agrees.
So he's got a lot of support.
Right.
Same with Doug Ford. The reason why Doug Ford should ride the COVID wave for as long as he can, because that might actually get him reelected.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Possibly.
But it might. That's the scary part. So unless you can separate him from COVID, which I don't think you can, Trudeau's going to ride that till the very end. But once COVID is over, for all intents and purposes, then they can go after him. And at that point in time, if there are scandals, which I'm sorry, Justin, I like you, but you're a factory of scandals, he'll eventually have to resign. There'll just be one too many. And he'll know that if he doesn't resign, he loses.
Well,
And he's not
and he,
that dumb.
right, and he not only does he potentially lose it for himself, but he loses it for the party.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He loses for the party.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. And then at that point in time, he can fall on the sword like so many liberals have done,
Yeah.
and pass the buck along to the person that's everything but prime minister
Right.
right now. It holds way more power than anyone else ever has, non-prime minister. And like you're like, oh, okay, well, it's obviously this person, and then that person's a clean slate, and then the Conservatives don't have as much to go after, or maybe the NDP. And then the other thing I predict is the NDP and the Green will eat each other,
Right.
because they won't form. If they ever combined, it's over.
Fair enough. Okay, so let
Right.
me think here, because you mentioned the fact that the Liberals are grooming Chrystia Freeland. So that was my next question. So she's got the deputy PM position. Now she's the minister of finance. So the first question is, do you feel like she will be the next leader of the Liberal Party?
She'll be the next leader of the country.
Okay.
I'm that bold.
That's the second half of the question: is will she be the prime minister?
She will be the next prime minister. So that'll answer both your questions
Okay.
at once. I'm not even pretending that she won't be.
Now,
Do I know when? No. That's too hard.
okay.
Trudeau has to screw up again.
Now, the question that I have to go along with this is, let's say she becomes prime minister. How successful will that be? If you go based on past performance, and not Chrystia Freeland's past performance, but let's say past performance of finance ministers that have become prime minister. So you had John Turner,
Yep.
who lasted 30 days, and you have Paul Martin. Okay, now I know both of them were technically put in bad situations, for lack of a better term, but that is the history of finance ministers that have become prime minister. So the two names that I missed were Tupper, who was the prime minister for 3 months after being minister of finance, and Jean Chrétien, who was prime minister for a lot longer, but he was not immediately proceeding as the minister of finance before becoming prime minister. Hasn't exactly been rosy situation.
So here's the thing. The next election, will it be majority for Liberals? No, because the votes would get split too much. And I think that you'll see an increase in NDP, and I think you'll see an increase in Green. And until those two parties align, you're splitting even more votes.
Mm-hmm.
But Liberals can take up the scraps.
Right.
Right. The one thing the Liberal Party is fantastic at is realizing where they need to get the votes from.
Well, if they stay in the center, then they're relatively safe, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively.
Right.
They're not too extreme to the left, and they're not too extreme to the right. And I'd say the majority of people in this country are there. They're not too far to the left. They're not too far to the right. They don't necessarily fall in the centrist view, but they're closer to being a centrist than they are to being left or right.
Now, after that election, if the NDP and the Green Party join, they win.
You think so?
Like we're talking 5-6 years in the future when climate change is like huge. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
They'll clean house.
That's a very bold prediction. I'm gonna have to put that on my calendar.
All right. I said if they join. If they don't, they'll split the votes and just do nothing.
Right, fair enough.
If the Conservative Party stays as a whole, because I can say it's splitting again.
Okay.
If the Conservative Party stays as a whole, they'll win. If the NDP and the Green Party doesn't win.
Okay. So actually, so I'm going to skip over the question about what you think is going to happen in the next election, because
I already told you a Liberal minority.
Right. Okay. And that's exactly it. So I can skip. I know you mentioned it, so I can skip past that. And then you kind of led into a question that I decided to put down was, do you think Peter MacKay, Aaron O'Toole, will be able to hold the Conservative Party together?
Yes.
I feel like there are two quote unquote big tents in the Conservative Party.
Sure there is.
And it's the question of whether or not he can keep those two big tents together.
Yeah, because he'll sell people. But that's what you have to do. As a politician to stay in politics, sometimes you have to throw somebody underneath the bus. So it just depends. But the reality is he will. To keep the party aligned? Sure he will.
All right. A couple of questions here are a bit more provincial and potentially more current. So when we look at any of the provinces, but let's look specifically again at Ontario and Alberta, because they're the ones that we hear the most about in regards to their plans for back to school, or
they're the most fun,
or lack thereof. Give me your over under on how long before the first school is closed due to COVID?
2 weeks.
All right. I was going to say 4.
2 weeks.
You're thinking 2 weeks. Okay.
From the time that they open.
All right. So you're thinking, so Labor Day is on the 7th of September, and I know certain provinces go back before Labor Day, but let's say for Ontario, schools go back day after Labor Day. So you're thinking essentially 2 weeks, or by the end of, say, 2 weeks after Labor Day, there will be a school that gets shut down because of positive cases.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess there is a possibility for that. There's a lot of schools in the province, in Ontario. So, like I said, I'm still going to go with 4 weeks. I'm going to go with 4. I'm going to say under 4 weeks, or that would be, I'm going to give it a little bit more time, but I wouldn't be surprised. When you look at say what's been happening with some of the schools in the States, I know that obviously, again, the caseload and things like that is a lot higher in the States, and it's the Wild West. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
It's just the math on it. Yeah. Like, it's just 1 in 8 for a public school and 1 in 4 for high school, I think.
Right.
I can't remember what it is, but you look at the math and you just do it over time, over the number of schools, and you just go, there's a mathematical certainty almost that it's going to happen.
Okay.
So I just can't see it not.
The second, and I guess the last question in regards to, let's say, Ontario provincial matters. And this does tie into the previous question about how long before the first school is closed down. Stephen Lecce, will he be shuffled out of education in the next 12 months or less?
Yeah, he'll have to fall in the sort. I haven't even thought about that. Yeah, they'll move him somewhere else. They like him too much.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they'll move him somewhere else. I mean, they moved Lisa McLeod somewhere else, and she called she called Eugene Melnick a piece of shit.
Yeah, they easily. That's the easiest cabinet shuffle ever.
Yeah,
they're gonna move him within 12 months for sure. Once that COVID thing breaks out, and they realize that he'll fall underneath the sword, and he'll be somewhere else. He might even have to be backbencher for like 1 term and then come back up.
Right.
They're gonna have to. They won't have a choice.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
if Doug Ford wants to be reelected, yeah, they have to.
Yes.
So they're gonna know.
Well, unless they figure that by continuing to blame the teachers' unions about it, that's going to be a successful strategy.
It's not going to fly. No, they already know it's not going to fly.
Well, they're already
doing
it.
Problem.
Yeah.
Like, they tried to do that once with the teachers' union. It didn't work so well. I don't think they're going to work it again. It's one thing to fight about money and claim it's about money, but there's going to be no argument if it's COVID in school. Like, how you can't just say, "Oh, it's about money." It's not about money.
No,
it's nowhere close to about money. Like, it is from the standpoint that they want more money to protect student safety, but it's not the same thing.
No, not at all.
Like, they'll lose that battle horrendously.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if even for a short period of time that becomes part of the fight. Is like, the unions are asking for too much money. It's like, but they're asking for money so that kids don't get sick.
Until the first schools close down, yeah, that'll be the narrative. And then the first school that closes down, they'll switch their gears.
Yeah.
And that's when they'll probably end up removing Lychee because they have to.
Well, I think he'll be shuffled out of education in the next 12 months as well. I think one way.
I can't say.
I honestly think one way or the other he probably will. But I don't see any way that this does not end horrendously.
No.
Just saying.
No, it's going to be a bad mark on Doug Ford's record.
All right. So the last question I have has nothing to do with Canadian politics.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just say goodbye now. No.
Sure.
So obviously we have a big election coming up in the United States on the 3rd of November. Maybe, assuming it doesn't get, delayed or whatever. So, simple question. Who wins?
Biden. It's not even gonna be close. I can see Biden win by 400 to something. And the reason why is because despite Trump's trying to sway the votes and do things like that, there's just so many people that are just going to line up. So many people are angry with him. Like, he's losing Texas.
Yeah.
How do you lose Texas as a Republican?
The fact that it's as close as it is, yeah. I mean, it's basic. I think Texas is basically 50-50 right now in polls.
Yeah. Biden's philosophy of doing nothing is phenomenal. And having Harris as his VP, what are you going to go after her for? Like, you can't ask her for her you're from Kenya or Japan.
Oh, they're trying.
Sure they are, but they have nothing.
Oh, I know.
They know they have nothing.
I know. She was born in California, but they're going after her because her father is from Jamaica and her mother is from somewhere in the Southeast Asia, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So which one are you going to go after?
Right.
Like that's the genius of having her is that they can't say she's from the Asian continent at the same time that they can't say that she's from the African continent. You can't do both.
Right.
More and more people, I think, are starting to realize the flaws in the Republican Party's mandates.
Mm-hmm.
Even like hardcore conservatives are like, ooh, we made a mistake. And the people like in the middle, they're just like, we voted for Trump. And I get why people voted for Trump because they didn't like Hillary Clinton because she was a career politician.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. But now you see why a business person is not better.
Yeah, I guess a strictly business person who has had no political history whatsoever, right?
And a person who's out there to make money and is bad at business too.
Yes.
Like Trump was bad at business too. Like let's not pretend that he was good because he was terrible. Yeah, Biden's going to win on a landslide. It's not going to be close. Now, I'm on the record and I'll say it again. I was shocked that Clinton didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't account for certain things. And, you know, I can be wrong on other things because I don't account for certain variables that I didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm.
However, I can't see it. Biden is so far in front. He would have to have the greatest collapse in the history. Like, I don't know what he could do to lose.
Well, I suppose we'll see, depending on if you pay attention to them or not. I guess we'll see when any debates happen, if they happen.
Biden versus Trump. How's Trump going to go after Biden?
I don't know.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't get. Like, Trump can't go after Biden. And as far as the vice president debate, Mike Pence versus Kamala Harris, please, that's going to be a joke.
Yeah,
they're so snookered. They're just like, who's your base?
And the problem is
your base is dying because you let COVID run rampant.
Yeah.
Your base is dying, you morons.
And if they lose, it will serve them right.
And I'm not saying that they'll lose the Senate, but the presidency's done.
Mm.
And the reality is that even after Trump leaves the White House, his new Secret Service will call them guards.
Yeah.
And he'll be very well protected. In fact, he won't be able to leave.
He'll be so well protected. like this might be the first time that Secret Service agents have to act as guards at a prison.
Yep, pretty much. Because the number of lawsuits that are coming his way.
Oh yeah,
he's in a whole war of hurt.
Okay,
there's no way Biden doesn't win.
So the question, the funny question, well, quote unquote funny question, I guess that I put along with this one was, regardless of the outcome of the election,
mm-hmm.
does the level of civil unrest from either side of the spectrum get worse?
No. And the reason why it won't is because the Democratic Party will do something. May not be enough. Actually, no, sorry. It will not be anywhere near enough,
mm-hmm.
but it'll be something.
Okay.
So that way they can hang their hat on it. That's all that they want. So it'll be enough for some people to say, okay, it's fine now. Like saying body cameras are now mandatory.
Mm.
But the officers have the right to turn off whenever they want to. It's that kind of silly thing.
Yeah.
So they're useless. But it sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So there's some predictions for the next, like I said, six months to 2 years.
All right. Sounds good.
That's what we think is going to happen. So, anyways, for everybody that has been listening, whoever you may be, I want to thank you for your continued support and listening and downloads and everything like that. And like I said, this isn't necessarily a complete goodbye, shut down, we're all done. We may come back from time to time because there may be certain things that we both want to talk about, or that one of us wants to talk about and the other one's going to listen and record and do all that fun stuff. And we may still do some things from time to time, but it is not going to be the regular weekly releases that we have been doing. So again,
we don't want to just put out stuff for the sake of putting stuff out.
Right.
We're not proud of it. We're not going to release it. And there has been episodes that we've both killed.
Yes, that is true.
That are buried.
Yes, there's a couple that I deleted. There's a few that I ended up putting out as bonus episodes on our Patreon page. So anybody that was supporting us on Patreon would have been able to get those episodes. I guess in the end result, we want to say thanks to the people that have been listening. We will be around at some point, but for the time being, my name's Adam.
My name's Mike.
And we will talk to you later.